nominee.
Yo!
2/3 of his votes were.
Yo! This has not been a thing since 26. Not even. This has not been a thing since before 2016. Last time Democrats had percentages like this was Obama, dude. That's crazy. What are we talking about? Oh, here, let's see what the possible paths to victory are.
Victory over Donald Trump.
The path to the White House goes through Wisconsin.
Saying they will, quote, play offense in the blue wall states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania that Biden was able to flip in 2020, and the Sun Belt states of North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada, where the campaign argues the vice president's advantages with young voters, black voters, and Latino voters offer multiple pathways to
literally these two, Palestine, these specifically the ones in the West Coast, immigration. I'm not Harry Enton, but I know what I'm talking about, dude. Okay?
For the president, including women, younger voters, black voters, and Hispanic voters. Those groups critical to Biden's victory in 2020.
I've been saying this for months, okay? For months. When Biden was at the top of the ticket, I've been saying this for months. Horrible instincts to just like go with a right-wing reactionary framing on immigration if you want to capture any of the youth vote, any of the Hispanic vote in Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico. These are places where you have to take a different approach, okay? Not one that is just like a lighter version of the Republican Party sentiment against immigrants.
Today about capping the cost of insulin at $35, passing the child tax credit, addressing student loans, among other policy issues. Jake?
All right, Eva McCann in Indianapolis, thanks so much. Let's bring in former Democratic presidential candidate and former DNC chair and former Vermont governor, Howard Dean. Governor, good to see you. I first want to ask you about President Biden and his address to the nation this evening. What do you expect him to say about leaving the 2024 presidential race and about Vice President Harris's presidential run?
I expect him to explain what his thinking is, which I think is fairly clear. And I expect him to thank the American people. And I expect him to explain why Vice President Kamala Harris is the right person for the job. And I think that's pretty straightforward.
The Democratic National Convention is less than a month away. Do you think President Biden will give a primetime speech?
I suspect so, but I have no inside knowledge of that at all. But don't forget that we're going to nominate Kamala Harris probably sometime in the next 10 days because of the chicanery that's going on in Ohio, insisting that we have the nomination settled.
Are you live until Biden's address? Yeah, it's in 3 hours, dude. Yes, I will be live at 5 p.m. Pacific when Biden speaks to the nation.
Real grassroots campaign in 2004. And given your time as the chairman of the DNC, what do you say to the Democratic voters out there who voted for Biden in the primary and are disappointed that the party is picking the nominee through delegates and not through direct votes?
Well, as far as I've seen, there's almost no disappointment whatsoever. Our delegation here in Vermont, which is a pretty liberal state, voted unanimously in favor of Kamala Harris after the president withdrew. So if there's disappointment, I haven't heard any of it, except the stuff that Trump says, and who obviously doesn't care about democracy anyway.
A new CNN poll gives an early glimpse into a likely Harris-Trump race. There's no clear winner between them. He's up a few points, but it's within the margin of error, 49 for Trump, 46 for Harris. That's closer than it was in a poll last month between Biden and Trump, when Biden was behind Trump by 6 percentage points outside the margin of error. When a Harris-Trump race is broken down by political party in this new poll, independents, 43% for Harris, 46% for Trump. She needs to improve those numbers significantly among independent voters. How do you think she can do so? Already, there's a lot of criticism of her record, saying that she's a San Francisco progressive, out of touch with the American voter.
Well, that sounds like Republican talking points. I don't think anybody gives a damn what the Republicans say. The real key to this, your reporters previously were pretty clear about, is young voters. Joe was not able to rally young voters. He should. He had a great record. Kamala Harris is the excitement of Kamala Harris for young people is extraordinary. I would predict now that third-party candidate RFK Jr. is going to actually take more in this atmosphere. Is going to take more votes away from Trump than, which is probably why they're talking about RFK endorsing Trump and him getting a job. I think that's unlikely. But I think this changes everything. It now gives Democrats a real alternative. And Trump becomes the old codger who probably has some cognitive issues.
Trump has cognitive issues, you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear. I mean, you get up and make a speech and lie 73 times in 10 minutes. You got some problems there.
This new CNN poll also shows Vice President Harris doing better than President Biden when it comes to...
You got to be so mad if you're Howard Dean and your campaign imploded because you yelled weird, and now Donald Trump gets to do like motions of coming at every campaign rally. Like every campaign rally, Donald Trump does the whole like transgender athlete bit that he does where he's like, and it's like people love that. Okay, that is a million Howard Dean screams. Do you understand? So much worse.
You know something? You know something? And then we're going to Washington, D.C. to take back the White House.
Like, it feels like it's from a different... It doesn't even feel like this was 20 years ago. It feels like this is a different dimension, okay? Like think about that. When this could cook you, it unironically feels like we are not living on the same, like, we are not living in the same reality, okay? Like, Republicans literally post the Donald Trump going, at every campaign rally, like it's an own, like it's awesome, okay? Yeah, Dean was one of the better candidates that cycle too. Yeah, I mean, I guess like he was also definitely significantly more progressive. That didn't help him for sure in the media landscape. He was one of the OGs in the blogosphere. Had like a lot of independent media backing him. That probably didn't play a big role. That probably didn't play well in terms of the media coverage on him. But it's like people asking like, why did this doom him? It's like, dude, because it was a different time, okay? When, guys, we're talking about Joseph Robinette Biden ran for president, okay, in 1984. That was the first time he ran for president. And when he ran for president, he had to resign from his campaign in disgrace because it came out that he had plagiarized one of his own personal speeches about his own personal life directly from a UK politician. Okay. Did I say 1894? No, I said 1984 or 1988. Yeah. He plagiarized Neil Kinnock's speech about being the first Kinnock to ever go to college. Like, think about how different of a time we live in where, you know, flash forward to 2020 when Joe Biden is plagiarizing experiences that he hasn't had, like getting arrested because he went to meet Nelson Mandela. Like, he's imagining different realities and none of that is hurting him. Okay. Or even on the Republican front, the 74 lies that Trump told this last debate. Okay. It's just a very different reality that we exist in now. Very, very different reality. It genuinely feels like we are just not in the same reality now as we once were. But on that note, let's get back to Kamala.
Well, this is a wildly different presidential race than just a few days ago. We've heard a lot from politicians about Vice President Harris taking over for Joe Biden at the top of the Democratic ticket. But the crucial question is, what do voters think? And today we're going to get the first snapshot of how they view Kamala Harris, who used her first rally as the presumptive presidential nominee to go after Donald Trump head on.
He and his extreme Project 2025 agenda will weaken the middle class, Like, we know we got to take this seriously. And can you believe they put that thing in writing? When you read it, you will see Donald Trump intends to cut Social Security and Medicare. He intends to give tax breaks to billionaires and big corporations and make working families foot the bill. America has tried these failed economic policies before, but we are not going back.
And I'm here with CNN's David Chalian to break down what we're learning in this important new poll. Take it away.
Well, we got our first look at a Harris-Trump race that is no longer hypothetical. And what you see here is there's no clear leader in the top line of the horse race here. A 3-point margin. That's within the margin of error, Dana. Donald Trump at 49% support. Kamala Harris at 46% support. That's about half the margin that we saw in the Biden versus Trump matchup the last couple of months that we polled. That was a 6-point race. This one now is a 3-point race. And if you look here, broken out by party, you see near total consolidation among Democrats for Harris, similar, more than 9 in 10 Republicans for Trump. Take a look here at the independents. Trump has 46%, Harris has 43%. Biden was losing independents to Trump in the last couple of months, according to our polling, by roughly 10 points. Now Harris is just losing them by 3, though remember, Biden won them by 13 points in 2020 when he won that election.
Now let's talk about the coalition. What the president, now former candidate for re-election, Joe Biden, really struggled with was holding the Democratic coalition together. Where is Kamala Harris on that?
She's definitely making up ground with some of these key core constituencies. If you look here, this is a poll that we did with SSRS, contacting people we had polled in April and June, right? So you can actually track the movement. And you see here, young voters, it was a 7-point advantage for Trump in the spring over Biden. Now Kamala Harris has a 4-point advantage among young voters. Black voters, Joe Biden had a 47-point advantage in the spring. Kamala Harris has increased that to a 63 percentage point advantage there. Hispanic voters, Harris narrows Trump's advantage, but I just want to note again, Donald Trump numerically ahead among Hispanic voters within the margin of error. That was a key group in 2020 that Biden won overwhelmingly, so still work there to do for the Democrats. And among female voters, you see that Harris has increased the lead where they were tied among women when it was Biden on the ticket.
These numbers are fascinating, especially given that important piece of information you just gave us, which is that these our polling company, our colleagues, went back and talked to the exact same people that they talked to earlier. Okay, let's talk about what voters want from their presumptive new nominee.
One of the numbers that just jumped off the page when the poll came back, Dana, was this is among Democrats and Democratic-leaning independents. Do you want the next Democratic nominee, her name is Kamala Harris, we know, to continue Biden's policies or take the United States in a new direction? 53% say continue Biden. 47% say take in a new direction. And
for the record, this doesn't mean, like, this, I suspect, means exactly what I've been saying, perhaps because I'm biased, okay? But it means do something different in terms of the least popular aspects of Biden's election chances, Gaza and immigration, and continue the most popular aspects of Biden's policies, which is social progress, defending, and championing abortion, ensuring that women have bodily autonomy, and also at least like the advocacy for socially or fiscally progressive policies as well. Okay. Like the litany of many economic policies that Biden has unveiled that are objectively popular and well received.
A near even split among Democrats looking for a new direction here. I think that is very interesting to watch forward how Kamala Harris campaigns on that. And then we've talked a lot about this all cycle long. Are you voting for a candidate or against a candidate? Take a look at what a difference a couple days make. For Harris, now it splits evenly. 50% of Harris supporters say they are casting their vote for her. 50% say they're doing it against Trump. Look at what that was when Biden was the nominee.
Yo!
2/3 of his votes were.
This has not been a thing since 26. Not even. This has not been a thing since before 2016. Last time Democrats had percentages like this was Obama, dude. That's crazy. It's been damn near 20 years since Democrats have actually said they're not voting against insert Republican, usually Trump, it's been Trump the last 3 times. That's crazy.
Against Trump, only about a third, 37% were for him. Harris changes that equation. Donald Trump, by the way, gets more affirmative support after the assassination attempt, after his convention. He's now up to 74% of his voters who say they are voting to cast their ballot for him. Only a quarter say they're casting their ballot to be opposed to Kamala Harris, Dana.
So interesting. So much to dig in on. I'm over at the table now, as you can see, and David's going to be here in just a moment, joining us here already. Excuse me, are CNN's Phil Mattingly and Sung Min Kim of the Associated Press. Hello. What is, Phil, I'm going to start with you.
Yep.
Excuse me, what's your takeaway?
So Biden dead-enders kept trying to say the polls are actually going in a good direction. They were lying. This is polls moving in a good direction, just so you understand, okay? This is exactly what it looks like when polls are moving in a positive direction, okay?
Of what David just laid out.
That last data point is the one I'm most fascinated by, and nerding out on some level, probably going a few layers deeper than maybe most people will be at this point in time. But I think what that shows is what I think a lot of us have picked up over the course of the last 36 hours, 48 hours, which is if you want to know what a collective exhale of an entire political party looks like, look into these numbers, both in the affirmative support of the vice president, 50%, where I think Joe Biden was at 37%, as David was just showing through. They are excited about a candidate when they weren't prior to now. Because of that, you are seeing many of the groups that form up their coalition, as David was running through, start to come back home, which was always the pitch from the Biden team. They'll come back home eventually. They'll have to come back home eventually. They weren't coming back home. They may have, but they weren't up until the last couple of days. They are starting to now in the key demographic groups. I think that's critical. I think the big question right now is, I don't know that this changes what we would have assumed would have been the dynamics of what we knew was going to be a very, very close race. At all on that front. It's just a matter of, can the coalition continue to come home in its entirety? And most importantly, those kind of 100 to 150,000 voters in those 7 critical states, where are they? And I think that's always going to be the question now that things seem to be aligning how Democrats and Republicans expected them to.
Yeah, and that's obviously, this is a national snapshot. It's important for us to see this. It's going to be those battleground states, wherever they are at this point, that will tell us who is going to ultimately become president next time around. But just on that question of coming home, a phrase that you just used, let's look at another way to approach our new numbers that we're just getting out. The question, the choice for president, basic question. Right now, Trump is still up 3. Again, this is a margin of error situation. But back just a couple months ago, if you look from April through June, up 6. So
football's coming out.
There is a slight shift in the direction of the Democrats.
And a slight shift because of the numbers that David pointed out, that so much of the key parts of that Biden-Harris coalition in 2020 are energized and excited for their Democratic nominee again. And, just going back to Phil's point, when, the Biden campaign's whole theory of the case is that once you put Joe Biden up against Donald Trump, people are going to remember what they didn't like about the Trump White House and then come home to the Democratic Party. But kind of politics 101 is you do have to be excited for your party's candidate. And it's just this level of enthusiasm that we're seeing for the Democratic Party is nothing that we saw on the scale of what we saw on Joe Biden's behalf for so much of the last year and a half. And another number that I was just so struck by in the poll, where it said 90% of Democrats approved of Biden's decision to end his candidacy. I mean, we knew that that tells you his staying in the race was going to be an unsustainable situation. And just whether that energy of the Democratic Party right now, bleeds into those independent voters that are so critical that President Biden won in 2020, that, former President Trump is doing better with right now, yet to be seen clearly. But I think that, I don't know if Democrats could have had a better 48 hours.
The latest on the race for the White House, Vice President Kamala.
We've been talking a lot about Biden's progressive economic policy, but the material conditions where most Americans aren't getting much better. Biden has almost done nothing to mitigate this, and according to a lot of people, has only made the issue worse. To me, defending Biden only makes us fools and idiots and will cost us in the long run. Could you point me to some sources to support your claims? Everything that I'm talking about is what Biden is campaigning on in terms of like a rent cap. As far as like what Biden has done in terms of like the infrastructure bill, that's good. Those are objectively good bills that he passed that have opened up new facilities that are unionizing. The IRA was good. I mean, it was obviously not as good as what it was supposed to be, but it was still good. In terms of Biden's advocacy, why are people saying drill tweet? What is this? Why are you sending me this? Anyway, how the IRA was a mixed bag at best. He gutted the COVID era social safety net though and kicked tens of millions off Medicaid. Ultimately, infrastructure spending is broadly popular and a good thing. It is absolutely what was necessary at the time. They didn't pass it because they're progressive champions of economic justice. They passed it because there was no other way. I do not like you. Fuck yourself. Oh, I'm sorry.
Harris, who is now the presumptive Democratic presidential nominee, ramping up her campaign after her first rally in the key battleground state of Wisconsin. Let's go to our chief White House correspondent, Mary Bruce, for the details. Good morning to you, Mary.
Good morning, Robin. Well, I can tell you the energy in that room at that rally was palpable. The crowd was fired up and energized. It was the largest crowd the Democrats have seen in this race so far. And from the moment Kamala Harris stepped onto that stage, it was clear this is now a whole new race. This morning, Kamala Harris is hitting the ground running. Her first campaign rally in battleground Wisconsin, electrifying a crowd of 3,000 supporters.
We have doors to knock on, we have phone calls to make, we have voters to register, and we have an election to win.
Harris already now the presumptive Democratic nominee, as President Biden prepares to address the nation about his historic decision to bow out of the race. With a little over 100 days until the election, the vice president pitting her record against Donald Trump's. Arguing as the former Attorney General of California, she's uniquely qualified to prosecute the case against him.
I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
And she's wasting no time getting at the issues that will determine this race.
We who believe in reproductive freedom will stop Donald Trump's extreme abortion bans because we trust women to make decisions about their own body and not have their government tell them what to do.
But all the economic issues at the top of mind for so many voters.
America has tried these failed economic policies before, but we are not going back.
This morning, the first poll since Biden withdrew showing Harris has a slight lead over.
I think one aspect that she has to fucking hammer that I think is like good messaging is Trump's tax cuts, right? I would just say, like, look, this guy fucking lied to you, okay? This guy lied to every American that's making less than the top marginal tax rate every year. He turned around and he said he was going to cut everybody's taxes, and all he did was make permanent tax cuts for the mega wealthy in this country, permanent tax cuts for corporations in this country, and then your tax cuts were slated to sunset, okay? I want to restore that. Like, I want to restore that process. I want to, like Joe Biden said, no tax cuts for those, no tax increases for anyone making less than $400,000 a year, but tax increases for those making more than $400,000 a year. What does sunsetting mean? It means like it goes away. So all the tax cuts that the poor people saw, which was already marginal to begin with, is completely gone. They expire. We have to make sure that Americans that are high earners participate in the American process. Like, it's the most patriotic thing you can do. Fixing the fucking roads, funding public education, making this a better country. Donald Trump also lied and said he was going to increase capital gains tax, and then, of course, didn't do it, for the record. No, Hasan? No, but Hasan, you're rich. You have to vote for Trump's tax cuts? Yeah, I know. I'm an idiot as a class trader, I guess. Well, not even technically bourgeois, but still wealthy. Well, you were on the house floor sobbing, "Oh, Netanyahu, sir, kill me next." I was checked into the Ritz-Carlton sampling exotic Oreo flavors. Delegate preferences on VP are out. Not shocking, but the first pick is Shapiro. Fuck. I mean, Shapiro is the safety pick. Shapiro is to make sure that you win Pennsylvania. That's why a lot of people are doing that. My favorite tweet in regards to taxing the wealthy. Boo-hoo, imagine being one of the richest people in the richest state in the richest country in all of human history and complaining about giving back to the common good that made that high income possible in the first place. Yeah, it's a great way to talk about this. For the record, the tax cuts for the wealthy, the top marginal tax cuts stay. Those are permanent. The only ones that expire are for the working class. Anyway, let's continue.
Over Trump, a lead that doubles if third-party candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is in the mix. But this race will come down to a handful of battleground states where Trump has been leading for weeks. And that's where Harris's pick for a running mate could come into play. Sources tell ABC News vetting has already begun. For now, at least 4 names on the list. Josh Shapiro, the popular governor of must-win Pennsylvania. Senator Mark Kelly of critical Arizona, an astronaut and the husband of former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords. Andy Beshear, the young governor who just won re-election in deep red Kentucky. And Governor Roy Cooper, elected twice in North Carolina, a state Democrats have been investing in heavily, hoping to flip blue. Now, a senior administration official tells us that right now Kelly and Shapiro are the leading candidates. But of course, this list could change in the coming weeks. And Harris doesn't just have the ability to focus on the race for now. She also has to.
It sucks that out of that list, those are the 2 more conservative ones. It's just like kind of lame.
Balance this new role with her official duties. And today that includes a speech in Indiana. And tomorrow, a meeting with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu back in Washington. Robin.
That's right, Mary. Our thanks to you.
When it comes to Harris herself, a few years ago, you were running in the Democratic primary against Harris. You believed that you were best positioned to beat Donald Trump. Why do you think Vice President Harris is the best candidate to beat Donald Trump now?
Well, I think we've seen it even just in the last 48 hours, the speed with which she has brought the party together and the energy with which she has not just, as she sometimes says, prosecuted the case against Donald Trump, but also begun to lay out the kind of vision that is going to make Americans better off. It's a phenomenal contrast between President Trump, who is consumed by his own past, and Kamala Harris, who is talking about our future. I also really admired the focus on freedom. That was a really big part of her comments today and yesterday, because I think that's a big part of what is at stake. I'm old enough to remember.
Why does chat not like him? He's a careerist. He's dangerous. He's a dangerously neoliberal individual who is literally like the classic bicoastal elitist archetype. I mean, he worked at fucking McKinsey. You're just homophobic? Yeah, I'm homophobic. That too. It's not my fault that the 2 prospects from the Democratic Party that happen to be gay are fucking rugged neoliberals, okay? Jared Polis and Pete Buttigieg. Both of them are gay. Both of them are unironic, like r/neoliberalism mods. Okay, maybe not Pete, but apparently Jared Polis literally is. He's easily the best orator in the Democratic Party. Stop hating Hasan. Bro, what are you talking about? Look at Donald Trump, man. What are we talking about? Oh, he's the best orator. Like, that shit's not enough. He reads this fucking phony, okay? He is super captivating for everyone with a globe emoji on Twitter, everyone with a Ukrainian flag in their bio on Twitter, and that's like 150 total people, okay? He's a great orator in the same way that JD Vance is a good orator. They're both like utilizing this TED Talk style of speaking. It matters not how you feel about it. It matters how everyone else reads his fucking, everyone else reads his character.
When freedom was something you usually heard talked about on the Republican side and among conservatives. But right now, I think we have many, many examples why Americans will experience more secure freedom under a Kamala Harris presidency than under a return to the chaos of Donald Trump and the systematic reduction of freedom, starting, of course, with Donald Trump following through on his promise to end a woman's freedom to choose and access abortion rights in this country.
Well, and Donald Trump said today that he does want to debate Vice President Harris, maybe more so than once. One of the issues that
only after backing out of the debate he already agreed to, though, right?
Somehow today he has an issue with doing it with ABC.
Right, but he didn't when he agreed to it in the first place, right? I mean, I think the interesting thing about this is what changed. from when he said he was ready to do an ABC. Democrats and disagree with Donald Trump on taxes and his agenda of tax cuts for the rich. They agree with Kamala Harris, Democrats, and disagree with Donald Trump on his removal of the right to choose in this country. And gun violence, marriage, you can go on down the list.
Former Mayor of South Bend is literally the most hilarious qualification for a presidential candidate. The fact that he was handed the transportation job is ridiculous. Is it though? I think they are straight up propping him up to be the most CIA adjacent president that the Democratic Party could ever put forward. He speaks 8 languages. I don't care. I don't. What do you mean? Okay, cool. Great. He's a fucking nerd. Okay. Shut up. I hate how fucking corporate he is. Listen, man, Mitt Romney is also this like brilliant corporate guy. Okay. Look at the way the American public perceived him. They're posting him up to give him a higher profile. He can't win a single seat in his state. Yeah. Like Xiaoma, New York City, speaks like 16 languages. You don't see me advocating for him to fucking run for president. Okay. What a ridiculous qualification. Obama just said Kamala can't beat Trump. Dude, what's up with these fucking weirdos, dude? You're reminded that Andy Beshear's children go to public school and have for years. Don't get Kentucky facts from this Ron DeSantis fanboy. Yeah, he's so pro-public education that he sends his kids to private school. Yeah, Andy Beshear is not only a fucking massive advocate for public schools, he's anti-charter school, and his kids literally go to public school. Like, no, he's so solid on that front. That's like one of his strong suits, in my opinion. Where is this? Is this New York Post? Obama doesn't believe Kamala Harris can beat Trump, which is why he hasn't endorsed their sources. I like to think that all of the former presidential hopefuls that have dominated, or the presidents that have dominated the Democratic Party, personally have like unimaginably selfish reasons. Joe Biden selfishly didn't want to drop out because he was like, it's my time. Hillary Clinton selfishly did not want Kamala Harris because he didn't want first female president next to Kamala Harris. Obama is looking at it and being like, well, it's a step up from first black president. It'll be a first black woman president. And now I suspect, now I don't trust the New York Post, but in my head canon, I like to think that that's the real reason why. It's their ego. Okay. It's their personal ego. The same Obama who forced the pod challenge to apologize to Joe Biden for speaking the truth. Anyway, Hillary Clinton, of course, endorsed Kamala Harris. I know. Obama's very upset because he knows she can't win. The Biden family source told the Post. Oh, okay, dude. Shut the fuck up. Shut up. God damn it. Sure. Like, even if he thinks that, there's no fucking world in which he would say that out loud, okay? I already think it's annoying that he hasn't endorsed her, but
I think she's very well positioned to remind Americans of that fact.
Well, and Trump also has a record on immigration. We saw what he did with the bill that was negotiated by some Republicans, a bipartisan group on Capitol Hill earlier. But there's also a record for the Biden administration, and it's been one of the lower points where they have polled, and it is also a top concern for voters. So what does that look like for Harris as, how she defends how the Biden administration has handled immigration, but also maybe trying to separate herself from some of those decisions?
Well, I think she's going to be able to, again, remind Americans of the difference between somebody who's focused on solutions and somebody who is focused on anything that can divide us. This bipartisan immigration bill that Donald Trump helped to kill would have made a difference at the border. And it was negotiated, by the way, with very conservative Republicans as well as Democrats. Why did Donald Trump kill that? Well, because he actually needs things to be terrible at the border. He's not interested.
That's crazy. That's crazy that she thought, like, what are you doing? Okay, come here. Come. God damn it. So fucking cute. It's crazy how cute she is. Adorable. She just got up and stood by my side like I wouldn't notice. I can't resist her. She's the best. Yeah, I hate this narrative surrounding the fucking right-wing immigration bill that we're considering a bipartisan immigration bill. It's just a right-wing immigration bill. It's just being passed by Democrats with the worst instincts possible. Like, hypocrisy baiting on this front is so unimaginably brain dead. Okay, it's so unimaginably stupid. It's just like you are gift wrapping fascism, both in terms of policy and politics, to the right.
Interested in the immigration issue or the border issue becoming less chaotic. Chaos is his oxygen. He is for anything that will make it more chaotic in this country, which is why, again, he went out of his way to intervene in a congressional process and block that compromise from happening.
Yeah, but if she's pressed on, after that was sunk, you saw President Biden sign an executive order cracking down on asylum seekers at the border and what those limits look like depending on how many people are crossing the border each day. If she's pressed on an issue like that, does she defend it? Does she say that it was the right move at the right time? Or is there room for her to stake new ground on something like that?
Well, we'll see how she speaks to that and how she wants to lead the conversation on that. But she will already be in a position to talk about an administration, the Biden-Harris administration, that made tough choices to help with this issue. And someone like Donald Trump, who has gone out of his way to make this issue worse, because the worse it is for America, the better it is for him.
There's a new Marist poll out today as we're in this search for a running mate. It actually is you at the top of it. Also, Governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, both are on 21%. That's among Democrats and Democratic-leaning voters. We've heard a lot of governors being on this list. Do you believe that a cabinet secretary with a residence in Michigan who's from Indiana should be on that list?
It's day 2 since President Biden made his decision. What I know is that nobody's more of an expert, other than maybe Joe Biden. Nobody's more of an expert on the vice presidency and on how that process should work than somebody like Kamala Harris. I know she's going to have a process and make a decision that makes sense for her, for the party, and for the country.
Yeah. Have you had any conversations about it, though? Or
I've had one conversation with her, and it was on Sunday, and it was about how excited I am for her to lead this party and the fact that I was going to support her. The ticket did not come up.
Okay, so nothing on the ticket there. Donald Trump said today that he doesn't regret picking J.D. Vance as his vice presidential nominee in this process, despite the fact that it happened before he knew that Harris was going to be at the top of the ticket, as we believe. Do you think that there's someone she could pick as her vice president that would make him regret that choice?
Well, again, that's going to be her call, her process. But what I will say is that the choice of J.D. Vance is a regrettable choice, because he's somebody who was at his most convincing and effective when he talked about how unfit for office Donald Trump is. And he is not.
God, Pete is such a fucking piece of shit. He's so good. Yeah, the most effective counter to J.D. Vance is literally fucking Waltz or Bashar, right? Especially Bashar. He knows that. Ain't nobody fucking likes him in the Rust Belt. They hate him in the Rust Belt, actually, because he's the type of guy who comes in. When he's the type of guy that you see outside of the fucking Motel 6 in your hometown, you know there's mass layoffs coming, okay? And I mean that literally and figuratively, okay? Pete Buttigieg, the only time when a guy like him comes into your fucking town, you're about to watch a facility close down, okay? That's it. That's precisely what he did when he was at McKinsey, and that's precisely how he carries himself. Or there's a chemical spill, and he's haphazardly trying to do PR for the administration. Neither of which are good things, okay? He is like a plague rat. His presence is unsettling. Bashir, on the other hand, and Waltz, on the other hand, are fairly popular, if not very popular, governors with a long track record, not long, but like a decent track record of fighting and winning good progressive policies and good progressive legislation for their constituents, not even just their constituents, but everyone in their states. Okay? So those would be the two perfect foils. I mean, one's Kentucky. Both could claim Appalachia to a certain degree. Both can claim Rust Belt to a certain degree. They're good. They're popular. And those would be the perfect foil to J.D. Vance. If anything, I suspect Pete Buttigieg would be the worst possible pick for J.D. Vance, because him and J.D. Vance are cut from the same cloth. For example, they're both gay. Just kidding. Only J.D. Vance is gay. He wears guy liner. No, that's a joke. No, they're cut from the same cloth in the sense that they're both like corpo rats, okay? And they read as corpo rats in a way that is very unsettling to, like, regular Americans. So there are normies in here, dog. I know, but God damn it, I will not be censoring myself because there are normies in this chat. I never have, and I never will. Damn it. 1.5, 13. Okay. My real truth, my real feelings come out. Don't care. Anyway, there's a lot of talent in the Democratic Party. Pete Buttigieg is not one of them.
Not explained any reason, other than, of course, his obvious interest in power, changed his mind on that. Remember, J.D. Vance's whole identity is that he is connected to Appalachia, a place that is being hurt so profoundly by the opioid crisis. So the fact that he didn't just refer to Donald Trump as an idiot, though he did, didn't just say all kinds of things about how he was terrible, but compared Donald Trump to opioids. That is literally the darkest, most negative thing someone connected to Appalachia could possibly say about a politician. And that was in public, right? In private, he was comparing him to Hitler, reportedly. He has yet to explain why his opinion would be any different other than his own search for power.
So when he says, I watched Donald Trump in office, that's what changed my mind, you're not buying that.
That doesn't make any sense, especially coming from the Midwest. He's from Ohio. I grew up in Indiana and live in Michigan. I have seen how the industrial Midwest went into a manufacturing recession under Donald Trump and has experienced a manufacturing renaissance under the Biden-Harris administration. Why is that? Because the Biden-Harris administration has led on policies that have factories rising out of the ground of places, including places like near where I grew up, that haven't seen this kind of investment in a generation. How could J.D. Vance or anybody else initially think that Donald Trump is a disaster, watch him lead the country into a manufacturing recession? This is, by the way, before COVID, let alone everything that happened through the mismanagement of COVID, and then say, oh, now I've seen the light. He's a great leader, and I want to be on his.
There's absolutely no delay in his response. He's really conversational. It doesn't feel scripted like other candidates. Fucking hate this community, dog. Y'all are literally going to neoliberal prison, okay? Under the Pete regime, every single one of you are going to prison, okay? I hope, and you deserve it. They're going to send you to prison for being gay. Make him press secretary. Keep that man away from power, okay?
His team. I think we all know why J.D. Vance changed his mind.
Do you think Harris will be able to appeal to those, skeptical working class voters in a Michigan, in a Wisconsin, in a Pennsylvania? Those are voters that Biden had real crossover appeal with them in 2020. Do you think Harris will be able to have that outreach to them?
Yes, and I think the reason is, again, that most voters where I come from agree with her on most issues. We talked about taxes, right? The Republican Party, whether we're talking about Donald Trump or J.D. Vance, despite the kind of faux populism, they are about tax cuts for the rich and for corporations. One of the few promises that Donald Trump actually kept was the one to cut taxes for the rich. That's what they're about. And by the way, they're also against things like the minimum wage, against labor unions. J.D. Vance got, I think, a 0% rating from the AFL-CIO. You compare that with Kamala Harris, who is a distinct leader in her own right, but also part of an administration that is the most pro-union in modern American history.
He's a very good communicator. Yeah. Keep him the fuck away from power, dude. He is genuinely a terrifying sociopathic figure, okay? I don't think people understand. He is very good on paper. He has a great resume. And I think he would lead America into like a second Thatcher style neoliberal regime like Ronald Reagan.
History. There are so many issues, bread and butter issues, like questions on the cost of childcare that Donald Trump was literally, it seemed, incapable of even hearing during the first debate, certainly incapable of responding to, versus something that Kamala Harris has been very focused on, making it easier and more affordable to raise a family in this country.
That childcare answer in the debate from both candidates was, I think, kind of confounding to everyone. But I'm glad you brought up children, because there's actually this answer that J.D. Vance gave a few years ago, and he name-dropped you in it about people who don't have children working in the government. This is what he said.
It's just a basic fact. You look at Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, AOC, the entire future of the Democrats is controlled by people without children. And how does it make any sense that we've turned our country over to people who don't really have a direct stake in it?
Now, I should note, you have 2 children. They were born before Pete gave that answer. Harris is also a stepmom to children as well. But what's your response to that?
I mean, the really sad thing is he said that after Chasten and I had been through a fairly heartbreaking setback in our adoption journey. He couldn't have known that, but maybe that's why you shouldn't be talking about other people's children. And it's not about his kids or my kids or the vice president's family. It's about your family, people's families whose well-being will depend on whether we go into a future led by somebody like Kamala Harris, who is focused on expanding the prosperity, the freedom, the well-being of our families. And by the way, especially if you have kids and you're worried about climate, choosing between a party that has a plan on climate that creates jobs and a party.
He's literally so Patrick Bateman coded. I don't know. I don't know how else to describe it. Like it's very clean. It's very calculated. There's not a single fucking emotion beyond anger behind those eyes. He is a perfect consultant. Nothing more dangerous than a balding gay man. This is what Mitch McConnell sounded like as a young man. Probably. I don't know. I mean, Mitch McConnell was a young man in like 1930s. So is Mayor Pete having a hand in the Canadian bread price fixing scandal just a meme or actually true? Like the top of the hour ad break is actually true. You might not see it because you're subscribed, but like it is a real thing that happened. He's a great attack dog for the Democrats. Put him as press secretary. I'm perfectly fine with that. He probably wouldn't take that position because he has higher aspirations, but anyway, top of the hour ad break is still here. What is this? Mayor Pete reminds me of? I can't. There's no audio. Or am I? Why is there no audio?
Anyway. That still calls it a hoax, even as we went through the hottest day in world history. Or do you want your children to grow up in a country defined by a return to the chaos and recrimination and cruelty that was the hallmark of the Trump era?
We're going to talk about Donald Trump stepping up his attacks on Kamala Harris as he hits the campaign trail for the first time since President Biden dropped out of the race. Rachel Scott is covering the Trump.
Hi, I'm Clint Webb, and I'm running for Senate. I have a short cropped haircut, a pretty enough yet accessible looking wife, and a newborn baby that I've dressed in a suit to prove to you that I mean business. For the last 15 years, I've lived my life in such a bland, uncontroversial, and repressed manner that it's almost unnatural.
I still don't really see what your issue with him is, other than his highs elected position so far as mayor. Have you ever heard of the term, like, we should never make someone who really wants to be king the king? Like, it's not a term, but like the statement that, like, you should never get someone who really wants to be president to be president. Colloquialism. That's a pretty solid warning about Mayor Pete. Okay, Mayor Pete has been angling the presidential position since he was like 12 years old. Okay, absolutely. He is basically an empty vessel filled to the brim with neoliberalism, but he will hide those worse elements of his policy prescriptions by trying to dance around the issues. He is hard to pin down on policy prescriptions. Oftentimes, I tracked his campaign very closely in 2019. His record as the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, was abysmal in terms of like refusing to do something about the white supremacy that was going on in his police force at a time when Black Lives Matter was in the forefront of the conversation. So obviously that played a pretty major role against Pete Buttigieg. I believe you when you say we need to be wary of someone. Yes. In South Bend, Indiana, his revitalization attempts were also utterly abysmal, very much neoliberal. It's the classic, like, let's turn South Bend, Indiana into Silicon Valley type shit. That's your metric? Someone wants to be president equals bad? You can't be serious? Dude, do you just, like, turn off the fucking computer after you type something? Like, why are you responding to something that I said 5 minutes ago as I'm in the process of explaining exactly why I don't like Mayor Pete in terms of his policy prescriptions for the next 5 minutes. See you in 5 minutes when you go, oh, sorry, my bad. I'm on a fucking mobile phone. Anyway. When it's time to eat the rich and I get Hasan.
37. 38. I'm sucking on it and I realize, look at my arm compared to this. This thing is as thick as my hand, dude. Jesus Christ. 68. Or 69.
Can I have some?
There's not enough. No. Nice.
Is he rich? Be for real, Rod. I understand what you're saying. I just don't agree with it. I don't get that vibe from him at all. Oh my God. Oh my God. Bro, you cannot be for real right now. Okay, give me the fucking bread prices clip. Give it to me. Come on. Come on. Come on. Where's the clip?